are the New York Knicks. I'm back in the New York groove. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New York. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks taking no shorts, it's like winter. New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K-S.
Everybody say go, New York, go, New York, go!
Hey everybody, welcome to the New York Knicks podcast, episode 385, which is also the amount of video replays and stoppages we had during last finals game. We are part of the Almighty Baller Podcast Network. I am Jay. With me, as always, is Mark. And we have Seth from the Ode to Oden podcast. How you doing, Seth?
Good. It's Sean, but you know what? I always liked the name Seth, so if that's like our little nickname between us, like that's fine, right?
We
like,
are
I'm
off
fine
to a
with
great
that.
start.
We can do that. Keep it personal, I guess.
You know what's great? Before the show started, Jay was just like, we're having Seth on. I knew your name was Sean, but I just kind of like, I just forgot. Even though like on the Skype screen it says Sean here, I just went with what Jay said.
I am really sorry, Sean. I should not drink before the episodes.
What if we said as a requirement, we said we will only do the show if you go by the name. We will only do the show if you go by Seth. We can call you Seth the whole show, like.
All right.
Yeah,
so,
whatever. I mean, I'm pretty easy. I don't have a lot of dignity left, so yeah, I'm fine. Let's go. Let's do it.
Okay.
Is it? So let me ask you, Sean. Is it going to be? So I know you have a show also, right? On your show. Is it going to break your co-host's heart when they find out your name is Sean, not Seth?
Well, so for that very purpose, to just remain as anonymous and mysterious as possible, I don't have a co-host, so this is perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that either.
I give you credit for being able to do a show alone. I tried to do that once, and I will never do that again. It's
well,
hard to
I
keep
have
it going.
guests and stuff. I'm not always alone. I used to do it completely alone, and yeah, frankly, it's awful, and it's really difficult to go back and listen to those. Particularly, it's difficult to go back and listen to yourself no matter what. But those are particularly painful. So yeah, I usually have guests on.
Okay, so I'm not losing my mind because I definitely listened to your show and I thought there was another person you were talking to, and I was like, wow, you're really good at faking it if there's only you.
Yeah, ventriloquism is also another hobby of mine. So yeah.
Hey, Self, how are you doing, Self? I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Do you think just a question? Do you think hi, Self, how are you doing? I'm doing well. Is how Phil Jackson conducts his meetings.
I love this podcast because you guys, I feel like, what's like a good percentage? A third to maybe a half. So like 33 to like 50% of the content here is just bashing on Phil, which maybe that's like justified. Maybe that's exactly what you should do because really that's the source of maybe all of your problems. Well, the source of all your problems is the owner probably, but he indirectly he should take the brunt of it. I think Phil should at least. And I when I'm listening to you guys, I'm thinking, like, how depressed like most of the New York fans are listening, because I know that you guys have a lot of downloads, and then I realized like the only way you really get through it is through humor. So it's perfect that you guys are funny in your own right, and also have the comedy podcast and everything. I mean, that's really the medicine. You guys are providing medicine to the suffering masses out there, right?
Yeah, if this show was serious, it would be literally the most depressing podcast. That includes the Suicide Helpline podcast.
Let's do a quick impression of what the serious show would sound like. So we've won 30 games this year, which was as many games as last year, and 17 the year before. But Phil Jackson has rings, and Melo, our star player, we're trying to get out of town, and Porzingis, our star young player, ran off to another country to avoid us. Cut to you, Jay.
Can I cue the Mad World song and just play that the rest of the episode?
So I saw this on Twitter today. I retweeted it. That apparently Jim Dolan was on Fox News or Fox 5, whatever, the local station, and said he has no involvement in New York moves. Essentially, he says he leaves everything to Phil Jackson and Steve Mills. This is from Ian Begley reported. And my comment on that was that it's like the Knicks said it's like the Knicks fans made a wish on like a cursed like monkey paw or something. It's everything we've been asking for all these years. Please, Dolan, stay out. Please, Dolan, don't be involved. And the gods are like, ha ha ha. We'll stay away. Dolan will stay away, and you'll wish he comes back. You'll wish he stepped in. Yeah. Do you think Sean? Do you think Dolan's greatest trick is convincing Knicks fans that now he's needed?
I mean, he's definitely It's an interesting point that you bring up, right? That now, like, the timing is so awful. The timing is even maybe more depressing than the fact that Phil is himself in charge. But no, right? They're both bad options, and it's okay. Like, we don't have to choose between them. Obviously, we need to hope and pray and start picketing that the New York Knicks are interesting because Phil Jackson doesn't get re-signed or re-upped. I don't know. You guys probably know the latest on that. And they picked up the last year of his contract. Both of them did, right? There was like a mutual opt-out. Neither of them did that. And so he's got one more year on his contract. Do you see him going past this last year? Or are they going to find somebody else?
I think I don't think anyone thinks he's going past the 5-year. Jay?
Yeah, no, he's out after 5. He'll do his damage, and that'll be it.
He'll have like a press conference at the end saying, if only they bought into the triangle, we would have won titles. Oh well, Knicks fans, you screwed yourself. But like in different words than that, obviously. But he'll come out. He'll be like off on his high horse and be like, it could have worked out if only Melo had bought in and been named Jordan, and I had Scottie Pippen on the team also. If only those things had happened, we could have won the title. Not my fault. Or he'll just like. How do you think it'll end? Like, what do you think it'll end? Like, at the end, 5-year mark, do you think, well, the next 2 years, we're going to agree we're not going anywhere in the next 2 years, right?
Right, of course. Yeah.
So do you think he'll say, I should have done things better, or he'll say, I did a great job, and now you have a strong foundation to build from?
Yeah, it's interesting, like, what the rhetoric will be. He's I don't know, like, he has done both, right? He definitely has a history of doing both. And I feel like he uses the media always to some way to kind of benefit himself or, in some, used to be to kind of like motivate the players and whatnot. And there will definitely be some super cryptic, very well edited tweet, right, that he sends out with 2 or 3 embedded analogies with, this or that. And he'll blame, yeah, you're right. But he probably won't take credit for it. He'll probably blame Melo, or he'll blame, just maybe the difficult nature of the NBA or something like that. Of course, he won't be taking personal credit for it because he probably believes in the garbage that he's spewing, right? And he probably still believes in the triangle. So, yeah.
I believe he will 6 months after he's done with the team, he will publish a book called The Zen of Holding the Ball Too Long: My Time with Melo and the Knicks. And he'll completely rip on every human being that worked for the organization but himself.
That's not a bad bet, actually. That's a pretty good bet. I'd take that, actually.
Yeah, no, that actually doesn't sound too off. So, is there any new Knick news to cover?
Well, the draft is coming up.
The draft is coming up. And,
wait, first we should probably cover the greatest rivalry in the history of the NBA. This is my new favorite story.
What?
It is Derek Fisher versus Matt Barnes. So for those of you who don't know, Derek Fisher was dating Matt Barnes' ex-wife, and Matt Barnes drove all across state to beat the crap out of Fisher. So apparently Matt Barnes gave his ex-wife a car to drive the kids around, and Derek Fisher decided to get drunk and total the car, flip it over, in the latest entry to this rivalry. So
when was that?
When was that?
Yeah.
That was last week.
Wow, I didn't even hear about the car flipping over. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And the car was registered to Barnes. So
Isn't he being charged with a DUI also?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes. So Matt Barnes wants this series to end immediately so he can go kick Fisher's ass again. He's probably so mad they lost on Friday.
What do you think would be higher rated? Or what do you think would be higher? Will be the Game 5 tonight or Derek Fisher, Matt Barnes Celebrity Death Match?
Oh my God, Celebrity Death Match.
It probably wouldn't play as well outside of like New York and like probably wouldn't play outside out of this podcast. Like, not every Knicks fan would want to see that, but like I don't know if everyone else would want to see it.
I mean, Barnes has been on like 7 teams now, so he's probably fairly recognized.
Yes, that's true. What do you think about the other greatest rivalry of all time, the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers? Is that going to be up? Like, do you think, like, legitimately, does that get recognized as one of the great rivalries? I mean, 3 times in a row they're playing each other.
Of course, yeah. I mean, there aren't very many instances in history where that's the case. Plus, anything with LeBron in it and this storied Warriors team, yeah, that's amazing fodder for sports arguments to come. Of course, this will be. Not to mention that it looks like for the foreseeable future, at least probably 2 years, I think the Cavaliers are safe in the East, and obviously the Warriors are safe, kind of in perpetuity, right, in the West. So I think, yeah, I mean, this is going to go down as one of the big ones, and it should, right? Like it's definitely warranted. It's not like it's a. I mean, people talk about it as if it's a dud, but the past 2 obviously weren't, and this one, even though we kind of were all expecting the sweep, I mean, I guess you could argue that the series could reasonably be 2-2 right now. I don't know like how much I buy that. I mean, I guess, yeah, maybe, sure, but I think that the Warriors, I guess the point that I'm making is that anything with LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry, and we'll be talking about for a super, super long time. And this basketball is so good. Like, I hesitate to just be like in the moment guy, but I feel like basketball is maybe not peaking, but it's at an all-time high. Like, this brand of basketball is so entertaining and so good. Even in these blowouts, like, every second is must watch. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Even these, even if it was like a sweep 4-0, it still would have been, I think, incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, the Cavaliers have been playing. I mean, obviously they have not done a great job in the first couple games to like hold Golden State down as far as their offense. Or, I mean, I don't know if anyone can stop Golden State's offense, but like watching these 2 teams, it is really entertaining to watch these 2 teams. And like LeBron, he may not be. I don't know if he's really lost a step. He's not quite. He's still an amazing player to watch. And Golden State is just, their offense is absurd.
Yeah.
Let me ask you 2 questions I want to ask. Then we'll talk about the draft.
Okay.
The first question: the Warriors. It seems like they're going to win probably tonight. They're probably going to have the series very soon. What great NBA teams do you think could have beaten this Warriors team? The first team I ask, I would say the Heat teams that LeBron was on are better than these teams, the Cavaliers team. Do you think the Heat teams could have beaten this team?
Oh, not a chance. Actually, that's interesting that you bring that up. I wonder if that's true. Obviously, Chris Bosh probably would be the second best player.
You don't think Wade would be the second best player?
Maybe there was 1 year in there that he would have been the best player. That's interesting because I think there was 1 year where he may have been the second best player. Like, if you just combine those 2 rosters, right, and you're ranking them. But the other 3 years, Bosh probably was up there. I mean, just because of injury concerns,
right?
And also just as far as like fit, or like Bosh would be perfect in this series, right? Like having the range to stretch to the corners and even kind of a little bit above the break 3. He was pretty adept at that. And the rebounding and the defensive presence that he brought, like, he was such a stud. That was really, really unrecognized, I thought. He was unbelievable defensively on those teams, especially when they went small.
Well, that's how they were so good, is their defense. I mean, LeBron's an elite defender. Wade could play like an elite defender, and so could like Chris Bosh. I think Chris Bosh, of the 3 of them, was probably the weakest of the 3 of them in defense.
I think that Wade's reputation, because he was awesome on ball younger, but I think by that time when he was playing with them, I think that Bosh was the more valuable. And I mean, obviously this is like arguable, but I think the thing that pushes him over the top, if you want to like say that they were like kind of tied, if you want to squabble with me about that, that's fine. But Bosh played the more defensively important position, right? Protecting the rim is just more important than guarding, the second best wing player on a team or whatever. So,
let's say I give you that. So let's say,
okay.
But either way, we both agree that Wade and Bosh are better defenders than Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love.
Of course, yeah.
And that's not close. So, and you figure offensively, Kyrie Irving maybe a little better offensively than Wade, or he's better offensively than Wade. But is he better enough? Bosh and Wade are flat out better players than Love. The combination of those two are better than Love and Kyrie Irving.
See, that's interesting because here's where this style of play right now really, really matters. Dwayne Wade he was horrendous at stretching the floor, and their offense, there were times, which season was it? Was it the second season when they went on the 26 game win streak or whatever that was? There were times during that season when the ball movement was insane, and they played the kind of basketball, similar, not as many 3-pointers, but the same kind of basketball that we see now being played in the finals. But the other 3 years, it really, really broke down, especially in the finals. And it was my turn, your turn with LeBron and D Wade, and there wasn't as much spacing on the floor as we see now. They often played 2 bigs, and I struggle because I think the fit there, while maybe if you're just ranking players in a vacuum, yeah, maybe the Heat's roster was better. Although this Cavaliers team might have a little bit more depth than those Heat teams. Those Heat teams really, really dropped off the map after the first 6 guys. But I can even grant you maybe the rosters were better. But as far as just the fit, the spacing, playing the way that they played, I think Kyrie Irving is a better, kind of more effective player in this style of play, right?
Yeah, no, I don't argue on the offensive side of the ball. I don't argue with that. I think on the defensive side of the ball, what I would expect was that Wade and Bosh could do a little more in defense, and maybe that would slow down Golden State a little more than Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are doing very little on defense to slow Golden State down.
Yeah, maybe. I think that Kyrie, while obviously he's an atrocious defender and has maybe 5 or 6 good moments every game, even in the freaking finals, which is so frustrating, right? I think that his net positive on offense, providing the spacing plus the creation next to LeBron James, I think that still outweighs the defensive negative. I still think that he's a net positive over Dwayne Wade, if that makes sense, just because the fit is so much better.
Okay, so
I don't know. I just remember watching those games and being so frustrated at the offense. They should have been, I thought, much better than they were, and they played very, very well that second season that they were together during the regular season, but it just never materialized that way in the playoffs.
Do you think any of the so let's just move on to some other teams. Do you think any of the Spurs teams, when Ginobili wasn't 150 years old, when Tony Parker was at his prime and Tim Duncan was at the top of his game, do you think those teams could stop Golden State?
If Danny Green shot 60% from 3 like he did in that one finals, or whatever the number, I'm making that up, but whatever the number was that he shot when Kyrie was MVP. What was that? 2014, 2013 finals.
Yeah,
that was that team. Maybe you could see that team do it. I
feel like you
might
might
be more entertaining. Maybe
you might need a younger Duncan, where Duncan was really dominate. What about Kobe, Shaq, those Lakers?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because the strengths and the weaknesses align perfectly like a puzzle, right? So seeing Shaq against this team would be so interesting. You wonder, with Kerr's reluctance to play the death lineup, I think kind of as much as he should, it'd be interesting to see if he would try to run Shaq off the floor, play Hack-a-Shaq plus just run him to death, and so force the Lakers to go smaller, or if he would just concede, always play 2 bigs, considering Draymond, your center or whatever.
Right.
And then who would be guarding Shaq and how exactly they would play that. Yeah, that's a really, really interesting one. Just, thinking about it kind of from the what if. I think that the Warriors still have the edge, but it's interesting for sure.
97 Bulls.
I mean, yeah, that's the one that everyone's going to point to, right?
Of course, yeah.
Because their defense was so good. Almost everywhere. The perimeter defense on that team would be so interesting to match up against this Golden State team. That's the one that everyone wants to see, right? You go to heaven, the first thing you ask God is, hey, could I get the theoretical play between the 2016 Warriors and the 97 Bulls? Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, that you'd have three of the greatest defenders of all time on one team. You think they could slow down Golden State?
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable. Gosh, that's really hard. I don't know. Maybe I'd take the Bulls, but maybe I'll just go coin toss. Is that a cheap answer?
No, that's fine. The other two teams would be the Celtics and the Lakers from the Showtime era.
Yeah, I don't think they have a shot.
I feel like
To be
Golden
honest.
State would beat those teams. I do think they, even though like those teams are stacked, I feel like the way they just didn't stretch the floor the way Golden State does. I feel like those teams were not. I don't know, Jay. Do you disagree?
No, I think for the first Lakers championship with Magic, that was like the first year of the 3-point line, right? So like, I think they wouldn't even know how to defend that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that would totally take them out of their game.
The other question I wanted to ask was, when the Golden State does win the series, what does LeBron do this summer? Because he's going to lose his mind because he knows he has to beat Golden State. Do you think he goes? Can we get him to go all in and trade an insane amount of draft picks to get Melo? Do you think that's possible?
I am so interested by this recent uptick of LeBron to LA, like reunion with Banana Boat, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I think it's hilarious. I don't know, man.
Yeah, there's been a lot of chatter of LeBron going to an LA team, not after this season, but after the next one when his contract's up.
Well, I thought he had an out every year. He doesn't have an out every year?
He did, except for this previous year, he signed a 3-year deal with a player option as the last one. Well, whatever that means, he could probably force his way out if I guess he really, really wanted to. But
here's a question: people are gonna, if he does leave the team, everyone's gonna give him crap, and I understand, and I'll be on board with giving him crap. But why, if you're an owner of a team, you're allowed to get rid of anyone you want. You're allowed to try to build the best possible team you want. You don't have to show loyalty, and no one gives you that much crap because you're trying to win. But if you're a player, you can't build the best team you want. You can't try to you have to just be stuck with whoever you have on your team.
so you don't think it goes both ways? So like, what if Danny Ainge trades Isaiah Thomas? You don't think there's going to be like a fan backlash about loyalty there?
Well, if he trades Isaiah Thomas and gets someone like if he can justify it saying we're going to be better this way, the fans will jump on board. They'll be like, that's okay, as long as we're going to win. You can't.
Well, what
you
if
can't
it's just a cap issue? Like there are tons of times when people just don't, resign or whatever, or trade away whomever for cap reasons, and I feel like owners take hits there, right?
Do you think that ever happened in, say, like the owner of the with Durant, Harden, and Westbrook? Was that an issue?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But no, I'm saying if your motivation is winning and not money, no one ever begets the move by the owner. You could do whatever you want. You don't have to show loyalty as long as you could win. It's okay. But LeBron, if he wants to win and will do anything to win, people give him crap for it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's a stupid double standard. And
Yeah.
going anywhere to win, like if winning is your motive, then that's a nice story. Frankly, if money is also your motive, I could personally kind of care less. But yeah, obviously, it's a bullcrap double standard.
It's also, if you think about it, and not that these, you do have workers versus the companies, just to go all Marxist on this, and not that they're not the workers like us, maybe you make $30 million a year, but they're not the workers but it's just weird how the average NBA fan will root for the team and always take the team side. You kind of should take the player side a little bit. I don't know, because the one thing LeBron has forced is kind of a change in power. It now, you could see the players asserting their power, saying, we're going to be just as much as in control as the owners. And why are the fans so angry about the players trying to exert control?
That's interesting. So can I ask you guys?
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like the older generation more falls into that stereotype that you're talking about. And the younger generation who, excuse me, a lot of them have team allegiances, but also we're in an era where following your favorite player is like a perfectly acceptable way to be a fan of the NBA, right? So how would you guys feel if for some reason somehow you traded away Porzingis and it was like technically the right thing to do? Would you guys feel angry about it? Like, do you know what I mean?
So basically, some people will say follow LeBron and always be a LeBron fan no matter where he is. I love Porzingis. If he leaves the Knicks, I hope he has a career-ending injury. You want me to be honest. I just that's how I feel about everyone that leaves the Knicks, pretty much.
Except for Melo. You want him gone, right?
Oh, I want him gone. Well, I know Melo next year will be an all-star. Or like he'll just be really good, and all the stories will be like, why the Knicks use him wrong. Look how good he is now with the Knicks. You know he's going to look good on his team next year.
Wait, so you guys are certain that he's not coming back?
I'm positive. There's no way. Jay, you think he's coming back?
I don't know. Phil's so unpredictable. I could see Phil saying he didn't get the deal he wanted and it wasn't a good enough value for the return. So now that I've damaged my relationship with him, I'm just going to have pouty Melo for the next 2 years.
It does seem like also that Phil blames Melo for the triangle not working. It's like if Melo would have bought in, the team would have bought in, and everything would be like candy in the skies. Everything's great. So I feel like he would want to get rid of Melo as much as possible and take a less than valuable trade because it'll be addition by the subtraction with getting rid of Melo.
Obviously, you guys know more about like the rumors and what he said last or whatever, and maybe I just missed it. But has Carmelo said something about waiving the no trade clause? Because the last I kind of heard about this, he was just going to kind of give Phil the middle finger and just stay put no matter what.
I thought that he was open to trading if it's like a situation he wants.
Well, that'd be cool. I'd love to see him out of there. I'd love to see you guys like intentionally lose a lot of games and get a high pick next year.
I thought the trade deadline, the story was he was open to the Clippers, the Cavaliers, and to Celtics. I don't know if he actually. I don't know if he
heard
actually
some of those rumors, but I don't know if it was real or not. I heard enough of those and enough of he's just going to camp down in New York City for the rest of his career, and he's just going to do it to kind of give Phil the middle finger or whatever. I heard enough of both of those to where I thought, yeah, I guess I didn't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I would be if he did that, it's his right to do that. He came here and he wanted protection from being traded away from New York, and they should have given him the no trade clause. You shouldn't have given him the trade kicker because those things said, I want to stay in New York and I want to control my destiny, and you should have said that's too high of a price.
Yeah, isn't it funny how we as fans, you're not supposed to root for anyone to get injured, right? Obviously that's a horrible thing. But sometimes there's something inside of you where somebody gets injured and it kind of benefits your team, and for a moment you kind of want to be happy. When Carmelo and Lala are getting this divorce, obviously that's a horrible thing, right? For the children involved, that's really an awful thing. But for a moment, I'll be honest, for a half second before my conscience came in and chided me, I thought, yeah, well, maybe this will help Melo leave New York, and that'll be good for the Knicks, right? Am I a horrible human for having just that inkling?
I think we all kind of thought that for a second.
Do you think Phil's like, hey Carmelo, so we have an interesting trade from Boston. Would you approve it? I'd rather stay here in New York. Your wife's a whore. Okay, I'll go to Boston. Actually, his wife didn't do anything. I don't know why I called her the whore.
Yeah, actually, it's Melo being a whore.
Yeah, you know your wife hates you and she's gonna stab you if you stay here. Oh, okay, I'll leave. That's what Phil's hoping.
Right.
Do you think my wife would like the fact that my natural inclination was to call the girl a whore?
Yeah, let's bring her in here. Let's see how she feels about it.
Why don't we talk some drafts, since we have a guy on that's supposed to talk draft with us.
All right,
so the Knicks are picking 8th in this year's draft. Somehow they managed to move backwards in the draft because the Knicks, there's no moving forward. We only move backwards. It looks like there are a couple guys that are going to be the most likely picks here. And so there's Ntilikina, which I may or not pronouncing his name right. There's Smith. There's Monk. And who else are people talking about? Who else am I missing?
Maybe marketing. People talk about in that range. I don't know.
So let me ask you guys. So these guys, what do you think of Monk? What do you think? Do you think he'd be a fit for the Knicks?
I think at 8, he's definitely somebody that's worth, that range of picks. That's fine. I think that, yeah, he's going to really help any team. Just adding that spacing is going to be important, I think, for any team. I mean, especially you guys who don't have a lot of shooters, but it's not going to be something that he's going to add a ton of wins immediately, right? It's going to make a lot of sense to put him with Porzingis. Obviously, that gives you a lot of spacing, but he's not like a creator. He's not going to be great in the pick and roll. I think in some units he's going to be fine because he is such a dynamic shooter, and I don't use that word dynamic as kind of like the cliche way that people talk about it. Like by the definition of the word, I literally mean that he has a lot of variability in his shot, which most people, you want the kind of repetition, especially from the waist down, like shooters like Ray Allen, where just like, you could take a picture of this shot and that shot, and unless he was wearing different jerseys and you saw like a newspaper in the background, you didn't know like what date that shot was from, right? It's all just a carbon copy of each other. Malik Monk can shoot from so many different angles, coming off so many different screens in so many different ways. That kind of gravity, that kind of shot reputation, at the very least, will allow him to draw the double team, or at least have the big have to hedge a whole heck of a lot on screen rolls. And if he's running screen rolls, if they ever stop with the triangle nonsense, if he's running screen rolls, high pick and rolls with Porzingis, that's going to allow him like a little bit of space, like a little bit of room to operate, give him a little bit of an advantage, even though he's not the great passer, doesn't have the great handle that a lot of other really good pick and roll players have. That shot adds so much there that you can see him being like a kind of decent creator. But, most of the time, if he's playing with other really good players, he's going to be relegated to, the third, maybe fourth option on offense, which is fine. He's a really good shooter. You think maybe his ceiling is maybe like a JJ, maybe a driving JJ Redick, somebody who can attack closeouts a little better. Although at the rim he's not great yet. He doesn't show a lot of knack there. Although he's explosive, and a lot of people say that he is good at the rim. I don't see it. On the defensive end, obviously there's a lot of problems there. And you're just going to have to take the good with the bad, unfortunately. But I think he's fine there at 8. Although on my like personal big board, whatever, I have like a tier system. I have him just below that in kind of like the 9 and 10 tier with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm not loving him as a pick for the Knicks because of his lack of defense, and what you describe is not necessarily what would be like if the Knicks were a little bit further along. That sounds like a good player, but this sounds like more of a 6-man. In some ways, Jay and I were talking that it sounds like a better it sounds like almost like J.R. Smith without going to the clubs.
Well, unfortunately, he doesn't have. Not that J.R. Smith was ever like a great creator, but in isolation situations, his first step, J.R. Smith, is so explosive that you're fine letting him create a little bit and taking like his step back threes or whatever, but often getting to the rim. He was so explosive there. I don't think that Monk will ever be. Probably he will never be as good as like peak JR. That's probably the case. But
that's depressing.
I don't think that he's like your kind of like stereotypical 6-man in a sense that he's going to be a creator. He's going to be a role player that's going to complement your other really good players. So playing him, with good players are only going to allow them to do whatever they do that much better. So on offense, I think he's going to be a very good player. On defense, you're definitely going to have to hide him. You're going to need a point guard who can take, the best one or two, of those two guards.
Yeah, we're not good at hiding bad defenders. Another guy who's been going up, his name is getting a little more steam lately, is Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell. That's the guy I was trying to think of. What do you think of his game?
He's interesting. He's somebody that has, I think, a lot of upside. I know that's another like cliche thing that we talk about, but I do actually mean that, considering everybody in kind of like a realistic sense. He has a 6'10" wingspan. He's really, really powerful, has a low center of gravity, and has pretty good instincts on defense. He is, I think, right away he'll be able to guard, maybe not right away, but with some time, he'll be a good defender. Off the ball, he's a decent defender. Sometimes he kind of will get a little bit spacey, but most of the time he's a good defender, especially on ball. I think it's reasonable to expect that at some point in his career, he'll be able to guard the best player 1 through 2 for sure. Maybe like not super powerful 3s he'll be able to guard. He made so many amazing defensive plays. It gets me really, really excited. So there he's going to be fine. On offense, there's a little bit of creation aptitude. There's a little bit of pick and roll feel. There's a little bit of there are a few hints here and there that he could be a shooter. He was asked to do a lot on Louisville. So, once he's in like a lower usage role and he can work on a spot up shooting, which I think is the most kind of projectable skill at the NBA level. I think that he can be fine at it. Now there's a chance that he'll be bad. He hasn't been a good shooter. He has a reputation of being a scorer, but he's actually never had a good field goal percentage. No. He's never been an efficient offensive player.
I was all excited for a second.
Yeah, the upside is that he could get there, but as yet he's not really proven it. I think as a low usage spot up catch and shoot guy attacking closeouts, I think that's fine. I think he can actually attack a little bit better than Monk can, but he'll always bring you that defensive floor. So I think he's a fine bet.
So Knicks fans, just as by the Knicks winning a bunch of games at the end of the year, we pick now 8. And so far, we have to choose from a guy that'll never be as good as JR and can't play defense, and a guard who can't shoot. So far, I'm feeling good about this. Let's bring up to Dennis Smith, who is bound to be injured most of his time on the Knicks. What do you think about him?
Is he the guy who tore everything in his lower portion of his body?
Yeah, but you don't need the lower portion of your body to play basketball.
That's true.
Go on.
True.
No, that was actually Harry Giles. You're probably thinking about Harry Giles. Dennis Smith, I think he's just had the one knee injury. I could be wrong. There are several guys in this class that have had 2, but I think he's just had the one. But I honestly think if Dennis Smith gets to you guys, then you should be doing cartwheels, like just be like dancing in the streets and whatever. I know it's more difficult to get a gun in New York, but yeah, just go out and start shooting some stuff. He is probably the second most athletic perimeter player in this draft, or at least the guy that projects the second most, if that makes sense, to be an elite scorer from the wing position in the draft. And he has a lot of potential going to the rim, like finishing at the rim, not Kyrie-esque, because nobody's Kyrie, obviously, but the ability to kind of hang, like little touch on finishes, that kind of thing. He's really good. Also, he lacks kind of the ideal height. He only has a 6'3" wingspan with a height of 6'3". So length obviously is a little bit of an issue there. But from 3, especially from NBA range, he was very competent, and he played in a very, very, very crowded offensive system where he basically had to create everything. I don't think he's a great passer. The NBA spacing, I think, is going to help him a little bit with that regard. He passes to guys that are open. There's not a ton of anticipation there, like guys that you see with Fultz and Ball and some of the great passers in the NBA. But as just somebody who's a pure creator, score first kind of guy who has a little like adequate vision, he's definitely that guy. He also has decent feel in the pick and roll. So again, if you ever get out of the triangle and you're running pick and roll with Porzingis, which is obviously his ideal fit in the modern NBA right now, Dennis Smith, I think, is a decent option for that. The problem is, I think Dennis Smith has a giant range of kind of like outcomes for his career. He is atrocious on defense. He has some physical gifts. Like I said, he's pretty athletic. He doesn't have a lot of length, so the margin for error there is obviously small. He gambles a ton. So there were a lot of steals. Usually steals is like one of the best statistical indicators of NBA success, and even who's good in the NBA. Usually, if you look at the steals, it goes a long way to kind of explaining who's good, because it's kind of like an interpretation, I guess, of that. You could say it's a combination of athleticism, anticipation, quickness, coordination, that kind of thing. But Dennis Smith is the fool's gold there, kind of like the Monte Ellis was, who like led the league in steals a couple of years or whatever when he was younger. On defense, he doesn't care one tiny little bit. And I wonder even if his instincts are bad. And that motor is not something that you often see translate to the NBA. I know people will give him all kinds of passes on this stuff, but if you don't have a good motor in college, most of the time you don't have a good motor in the NBA. That's not like just like a personality switch that you can turn on and off. And he was so off on that end that I definitely don't project him to be a two-way player.
So can I sum up Dennis Smith based on Knicks fans? Just want to sum up Dennis Smith. Besides the concern that his leg might fall off, He has limited ability to see other players on the court and will only pass the guys that are wide open. And his defense makes Steve Nash look like Bruce Bowen. And this is the guy we should be excited if he gets to us.
Okay, I want you guys to like temper expectations. This is one of the main themes of my podcast. Is that the world of NBA fandom, everyone, like, if you have a lottery pick, this guy should be great. Like, if you're picking outside of the top 5 and you find a starter, like a good starter, on like a good team, then you should be ecstatic, right? Like, the odds of you finding, like, there aren't many good players, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that are drafted at all. At 8, you're trying to find somebody that will just contribute on a good team. Like, you're looking for, somebody at the bottom of your rotation on a playoff team. Higher than that, obviously, if you're at the bottom of the standings, like the Knicks often are. So, like, maybe you'll find somebody that can be a starter for you. But, like, the expectation should be set a lot lower. Yeah. I'll just say that. Not to, like, add to the depressing nature of this podcast already, but yeah, I'll add that.
I want to ask you, so do you think the Knicks should expect that we can find a starting 5 player with the number 8 pick, with the caveat that the Knicks, towards the end of last season, one of our starters was a guy undrafted named Ron Baker? Do you think we can expect to get a number 8?
If that is your bar, then yeah, like, set the standards crazy low, and you'll all be satisfied.
Yes, exactly. So right now I'm pretty depressed. Frank Ntilikina. Oh, whatever.
Ntilikina. The T is silent. Ntilikina. Yeah.
Why is it there then? Why in all language do they have letters that just hang out for no reason? Okay. Ntilikina. Frank Ntilikina. I have a son who's about to turn 6 years old. He's learning to read, and we read stuff, and I'm like, that word what? It's what? You just don't pronounce the H. Why is the H there? I don't know, son. Just don't pronounce it.
Yeah, if only we were Spanish or French, right? Everything's phonetic there. It'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Ntilikina, tell me why he's going to be the greatest player of all time.
So I think that Ntilikina has the absolute highest ceiling. No, not highest ceiling. The highest upside from where he currently is to where he could be.
Okay.
He's not the youngest. The youngest is Ike Anubogu, but I think he's the second youngest player in the draft. So obviously age is the most powerful way to have upside, right? Like, you're already super young and you can get older. His body's going to develop.
He's younger than he kind of get Onabunga or whatever.
I want to get Onabunga just to try and hear Mark pronounce it every week.
He according to Draft Express, Ntilikina is 18.9 years old, and Onabunga
Ike, not OG. Ike.
Are you kidding me? Really? 19.9 years old.
No. What I mean is, you're talking about OG Anunoby. I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about different.
I'm talking
players.
about Ike Anubogu.
Oh, okay.
Duh, Mark.
Come on, man.
Oh, you're right. 18.7. You are right. Ike Anubogu. Okay, yes. We're gonna do a whole show where I just pronounce names.
Riveting. I can't wait.
So Ntilikina, tell us offense, defense. Is he a real point guard?
I think that he is a point guard. He's not the Dennis Smith, Markelle Fultz kind of point guard. He doesn't have the kind of offensive feel that those guys have. He doesn't have the great first step or like change of pace stuff that you often see in pick and roll. He doesn't have like amazing feel and vision in those pick and roll scenarios either. But he is a good spot up shooter. He has adequate skills in most of the offensive creation ways, the things that I just talked about that he wasn't necessarily elite in. And I think that in running sets, he very much understands at this young age where you see a lot of these guys that I watch. It's funny that I like the NBA so much, and yet I started a podcast where I have to watch like the worst basketball, right? Like, so in college, it's so frustrating. In high school, like these high school games that I have to watch, it's super frustrating to watch players not really fundamentally understand all of the options in this set, right? They'll be running NBA sets, but they won't really understand the purpose of them and where like all the windows are and where all the reads are. Ntilikina, I think, gets that stuff. So offense, there's upside there because his shot is already there. His handle is, I think, better than a lot of people give him credit for. He has freakish wingspan. So I think finishing at the rim is going to eventually become a strength for him once he adds a little bit of strength. He's obviously on the lighter side. But then on the defensive end is really, really where he shines. He has great anticipation. Now, I said he lacks a little bit of strength, and that can be an issue sometimes. But because of the anticipation, the length, the motor, the general understanding, I think he's going to really, really excel there in the NBA. And I like him a lot as like a complementary player on a really good team. I think that's where his kind of ceiling is. Now, of course, expectations, drafting, around here in the draft, most players aren't good that are drafted, frankly, right? So he might just be bad, which is fine. But everybody that you draft, you're just kind of hoping for that 75th percentile outcome, right? So I think Frank Ntilikina is higher than a lot of other people in this range. In fact, I have him in that kind of 6 to 8 range, and I might take him probably at 6. I know fit kind of matters when you're talking about tiers, but Ntilikina is somebody to get excited about, if only because maybe he's just younger and there's a little bit more mystery like to what he could become.
Is there so our next guy, Ntilikina, sum him up. We should be excited for because he is door number 3, the mystery door.
Exactly.
I like the fact he plays defense. I have to say, Jay. So if you have to go with one of these guys, who do you want?
I mean, the description of Frank was the only one that didn't make me completely suicidal after he finished his cons section.
I like the adequate skills idea. Like the guy, someone having adequate skills.
It's a little depressing that like the best guy we're gonna get has descriptions like adequate and meh.
And he's bound to get better.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Now, Dennis Smith, I would take Dennis Smith before him because Dennis Smith already is really good. Honestly,
See, the defense
he's a good
talk,
offensive player.
The defense talk is what
the
scared
defense
me.
is a problem.
I feel like defense is so important. I'd like to build a team around defense. That's why Ntilikina makes more sense because I see more upside on the offense, and I see taking one of these guys who's already terrible in defense in college seems just to be a bad way to build a team.
Yeah, if you're kind of slotting in like roles for individuals, right? So if neither of these guys are going to be your star that makes you a relevant conference championship team, well then Frank Ntilikina, his projected role, now obviously that could change, but his projected role gives you more flexibility as far as team building, whereas Dennis Smith, he's probably going to be in his most effective role, he's going to be a higher usage player who doesn't play a lot of defense. And like that could be right. That could be fine if you pair him with a few other stars, but that limits the way you have to build the rest of your roster to make up for his defense and and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think if Dennis Smith gets to you, you take him because his upside is frankly higher than Frank's. Like if he pans out, he's going to be better than Frank.
Is there anyone you see? We should also be discussing. Like, do you think Luke Kennard is better than people are projecting him? Do you think like Isaac or Markkanen will like fall? Like what's your mock draft say?
Well, I think Luke Kennard. If you guys get Luke Kennard, that's the most depressing outcome. Like really, I think that he is a second round talent. I honestly can't believe that he's in the first round. We don't necessarily have to get into that, but he doesn't really have any discernible things that he does well at the NBA. The best things that he did in college will not meet the threshold at the NBA where coaches will ask him to do that thing. So, I mean, his strengths are never going to be utilized. So, like, it doesn't matter if you have those strengths or not. If they're not good enough, then at the NBA, they're basically a zero because you'll never be asked to do them. So, yeah, I don't get that at all. I think that if Isaac falls to you guys, I think Isaac is in that second tier, kind of tied with Jackson and Ball. I think if you guys could possibly get Isaac, yeah, that would be amazing. Like I said, you should be dancing and like shooting gun in the street. You guys should get like Uzi, some kind of machine gun, and fire that in the streets if Isaac falls to you guys, because that would be amazing. I don't think there's any way that he gets to you. But other than that, I don't think there's like a ton of stuff that I'm like super different on. Besides maybe Zach Collins. I think Zach Collins is in that same kind of 6 through 8 tier that I have with Frank, and Jason Tatum. If you guys get any three of those guys, I think you should be happy. Ntilikina, Collins, or Tatum. Collins is a bit underrated. He is potentially the prototypical NBA center who can really, really move his feet on defense. I mean, he's not Nerlens Noel by any stretch of the imagination, but he, so much of his technique and everything is really, really good. Executes the defense really, really crisply, really, really confidently. Sometimes, I mean, Gonzaga didn't have a super, super complicated defense, but the decisions that he had to make were good, and he doesn't foul a ton. Like, everything is there. The problem is that he's not a great passer. He gets sped up a little bit when he has to put the ball on the floor, which is fine from your 5. But I think, like, just catching and shooting, picking and popping, he's going to be good at. I think he's got a better three-pointer than a lot of people think. He didn't do a ton of that at Gonzaga, but I think he can shoot. And defensively, he's versatile. So, yeah, I think Collins, he's being a bit overlooked. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think you could pair him with KP?
Definitely. Defensively, KP so far, now this could change, obviously, but defensively, his best role has been the 4. And pairing him with Collins, I think, would be awesome. Now, there are going to be some units that are going to run, Collins off the floor for sure, which is fine. But again, right, expectations. We're looking for decent starters at this point in the draft. And I think Collins will be that and has some upside to be even better than that.
No, just to be clear, I mean, you're looking for decent starters. We're looking for a Hall of Fame talent. Just to let you know, just that we're not to go crazy, but this is what we need. We need Hall of Fame. We need to draft like Golden State. That's what we need. Okay.
Okay. Well, you need to tank next year. You need to get rid of Melo as soon as humanly possible.
I think he's going. In the interest also in being able to watch the game soon, which is on right now, and the Cleveland is up. Let's go to quick. Do you want to do some questions with us from Facebook?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Jay, do we have any emails that we should hit first?
Yeah, we have an email. Why does Steve Mills get off without criticism? Phil Jackson appears to me that he's much more of a delegator than is generally attributed to him. It perturbs me to no end when Phil Jackson is referred to as the GM. Steve Mills is the GM, and he's the one who's constructed the poor trades. And while the president and head of basketball operations has to sign off on trades, Phil can only do so much after the fact. I feel Mills needs to step up his game or be replaced. What do you think? Thanks for your time, and keep the podcast coming, Buster. Thank you, Buster.
Was that email from Phil Jackson? I kind of think everyone looks at this as Phil as even Mills is GM in name only, and Phil does everything, and Mills is more about like the numbers.
I don't even know what Mills does, to tell you the truth.
I always assumed that he was just doing more the I need a trade for some guy. How does this work in the cap? Mills, figure this out. That's where I always kind of figured Mills was more the accountant on this thing.
Phil is
all of the little moves. Sorry, Jay, just to butt in. I don't know as much about this as you guys, obviously, but it seems like all the little minutia stuff. Excuse me, all the little minutia moves that you guys have made have been totally fine, right? Like 2 summers ago, everybody was praising you for Kylo Quinn and Courtney Lee, right? Just being really kind of restrained, right, in your spending. Obviously, the big moves have not been his fault. Have not been the fault of any rational being. Noah and Rose has very, very clearly been in Phil Jackson. Not to mention that nobody can look good in the antiquated system that he's forcing. So, I mean, clearly it's his fault. And if it's not about the roster construction, it's about how the roster construction looks on the court, which is, again, Phil's fault. So, yeah, that's my take, I guess.
Fair enough. So Devin writes, any more emails, Jay?
We have one other email. If the Cavs win or even force a Game 7, I'm never watching an NBA game again. That first quarter was blatant rigging, 20 free throws, 49 points in the quarter, and the quarter took an hour. Tip-off was at 9, and the quarter ended at 10. Calling those calls slows the game down, and free throws help the players' confidence in making shots. It was like watching a Knicks game when the refs start sabotaging the game. I wish a player or coach could really say how they feel about the refs in this situation. Thank you, Sam. So, did you guys think it was a shady first quarter?
I didn't. I think this kind of stuff is just going to randomly happen. I think that calling tight games like this, especially with the kind of basketball that we all want, is necessary. We don't want it to get really, really muddled down. We don't want the physical like mid 80s kind of NBA basketball anymore. And there are going to be games where randomly, there seem to be kind of more calls than at other times. I know on every play you could probably find a foul to call, but calling it like this overall, I think makes sense. It just so happened that that there were a lot of calls in this first quarter. And I don't know, did it mess with like the Warriors' feng shui? I don't know, maybe. But I think overall, like just kind of the process of going about officiating like this makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you're going to have games where it seems like lopsided or unfair or whatever, but that's kind of just random, I think.
Yeah, I thought the calls thing was a little bit over. I think people's reaction to everything was a little bit overdone. I would second what you said, basically. I think sometimes there's a lot of calls happening in a short period of time. It's a bit of a randomness, and it's, you know what? The only time I think refs are really unfair and the calls are BS basically is when the Knicks are playing. Other than that, I don't make a big deal.
Or when Ed
Right,
Malloy is reffing.
Yes. When Tim Donaghy, I hear he messed with the game a little bit. I don't know. It's just what I hate about the NBA is reffing is such like, it's whatever the bias the goddamn ref has at that time, and he'll just screw up the whole game. He calls 2 fouls on your star player, and the fouls can be complete BS fouls, and you have to live with that for the whole game, and that could decide the whole game.
Yeah, there's got to be a better system. And I know this is probably like out of the scope of, whatever we should be talking about. But there's got to be a better way to punish players for fouling than to kick them out of the game. I know that's like tradition and whatever, but do we ever want to see a game where LeBron James is playing fewer minutes than he should be playing for just entertainment's sake and also just like about the X's and O's? Like, do we ever want to see a game like that? When we could just punish him in other ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense to throw good players off the court. Like, why would any sport ever do that? The people that are making people come to like watch the games, to give you ratings, to give you all the revenue that you have, you're telling them that they can't play after a certain amount of, whatever it is. Like, that just conceptually, it kind of makes no sense. There definitely should be a different system. After 6, every foul you commit is like 2 free throws for the other player or whatever. Like, I still think that's better.
Or penalty box like hockey.
Like, you're out for like 30 seconds or something and you have like a power play.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? That'd be kind of make it more exciting. I don't know.
Right,
You have to lead,
this is like the XBA or something like that. This is getting crazy.
or maybe you're banned from the maybe it's not a power play, but you have to leave the court for 5 minutes. Like you're not allowed to play for another 5 minutes.
Wait, but isn't that exactly what I was just railing against?
No. But if LeBron by getting this foul couldn't play for the next 5 minutes, but could join the game thereafter.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you could come back. You just a certain period of time, like LeBron's off the court because of that foul.
Just like the penalty box.
Yeah.
But effectually, that's usually the same thing, right? Because you foul out late in the game.
Yeah.
And if you foul out with less than 5 minutes, then you're still out anyway. So I don't know. It'll probably never get changed, but I think it should.
But also, if you get what happens though, if you get the 2 fouls early, then you miss good chunks of the game because we're scared to get other fouls on you.
Oh, you're saying after every foul you have to leave for 5 minutes?
Oh, not every foul. I hadn't really figured this out. I was just saying maybe after 2 fouls you have to leave the court. I don't know. I'm just saying it's annoying also because guys get 2 fouls early on and then miss the whole second quarter because we can't get that 3rd foul on him. And I hate how it's also you'll see a foul happen. They'll call a foul. They'll show the replay, or a lot of times they won't even show the replay. You'll see no foul happen. The guy was 10 feet from the other guy. The announcers will always be like, yeah, he shouldn't have fouled him there. No one will say he didn't foul him there. And sometimes they'll even admit he didn't foul him, and they'll still say it was a bad play on the defender.
Yeah, it's odd. It's odd. Officiating is a very difficult thing to do. There's no way we should be giving the refs more things to worry about because obviously this kind of stuff comes into play, right? Like they know that LeBron has 5 fouls. Are you telling me that they're not conscious of that fact? They are. They're human and they are just biased by this, whether subconsciously for sure, probably consciously to some degree. There's no reason we should be putting more on their plate. It's already just so freaking difficult to do. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it does too much to decide too many. No sport is decided more by the refereeing than basketball. which is frustrating. And what kills if you have in baseball, if a guy has like a umpire has a wide strike zone, usually he has the wide strike zone for both teams, and as long as there's a consistency, we're kind of fine with it as fans. But in basketball, you have a lot of times where like he'll call a touch foul, and you'll be like, fine, he's calling touch fouls today, and then Melo will get punched in the face going to the basket, and they'll be like, we don't call that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that. Which sport is like more affected? Yeah, that's an interesting thought experiment. But yeah, basketball obviously is very affected by it, and it's frustrating. Yeah.
So Devin writes, Facebook, since the talent starts to average out after the first 13 prospects, is it actually worth it for the Knicks to acquire a mid-round picks to update their roster and embrace the youth movement? Should they focus on some of the more talented players of this draft, the top 3 prospects of the next draft? So should they focus on some of the more talented players of this draft and the top 3 prospects of next draft? So the idea being we don't need to get too much. I guess we get whoever we can at 8 and then focus more on bombing out for next year.
Yeah, definitely. You guys are at kind of the end of a tier. So trading out of that tier is going to like lead to substantially worse players. So
I think,
like trading down obviously is not an option. I know I didn't necessarily say that. Trying to trade in to this first round is not a good idea. I personally don't like the depth of this class at all because a lot of the depth comes in bigs, and bigs, the value of bigs around the league is obviously diminishing a lot. Now you guys already have 2 second-round picks, so like taking flyers on that kind of makes sense. I guess I wouldn't recommend trying to get into this first round any later than what you guys already are for like giving up future assets. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, so the thing that's been thrown around is that Portland is they're willing to trade one of their first round picks if someone will take on a terrible contract. And so, you didn't hear this?
I haven't heard anything about that.
Oh, so they're trying to move. They feel like as a team they could compete if they didn't have all these terrible contracts. So they want to get rid of some of the terrible contracts and build a better team. And so if someone will do the charitable thing and take their terrible contract, they could get a first-round pick.
So the going rate for like, I think it's like mid to late first-round pick is about $20 million in salary, just like straight up dump for dump. Now, obviously, that doesn't usually happen like that, but just in a vacuum, that's kind of the perceived value. And then it kind of depends from there. Obviously, it's not like the NFL where they basically have that like little book, that kind of tells them the most recent trades, and there's a ton of trades. So like there's a really established market there. It's not so much that way in basketball, and it can vary wildly. So if you get a good deal, right, like if you can get the 20th pick or the 15th pick for, I don't know, what's his bucket?
Turner's
Thank
contract.
you. Yeah, Turner's contract, and you can fit it into your, already pretty crowded cap sheet there. Of course you do it, right? Because you're not trying to be good. Yeah, that's fine.
If anything, it helps you because by getting Turner's contract, you'll be locked into between Turner and Noah. You're prevented from making really dumb moves for the next couple of years because you have these guys in the books.
So you're forced into tanking. I actually love that. Yeah. Take it out of their hands. Yeah.
And anyone from maybe the first round is a little bit weaker after the pick 8 or 9 or 10. Maybe it goes a little bit weaker there, but whoever we're getting is still could be a starter on our team because our team has, once you get rid of Melo from the team, our team is really bad. So it's worth taking gambles in the first round.
I mean, yeah, for you guys, if there's a deal there where you can take on somebody else's salary, I mean, yeah, that's a no-brainer just because you're not trying to be good. So I think that makes sense if you can fit it into your, into your cap space. Of course, yeah.
They can have Derrick Rose's cap space. That would be a fine by me. Whoever we're gonna use the money on is gonna end up being a worse move for us anyway. So, Kenny writes the 3 Portland picks. Is it worth our even going after these picks and the bad contract that comes with it, considering the talent drops off by mid first round, or should we just do it anyway because it's the Knicks? So we kind of went with it, doing it anyway because it's the Knicks. Do you think, is there anyone in the late first round that you'd say has maybe a higher? There's always, every draft, there's guys that, not every draft, but a lot of times there are guys in the draft that surprise people. I mean, we're not necessarily going to get a Draymond Green, say, but like there are guys that no one expected to be really good and end up being actually excellent NBA players. Is there anyone around the 20s who could see having a high ceiling that could work out to be a really good player that we should hope to get?
I don't know. Like there are a few like decent options. I guess obviously like this is me looking into a crystal ball, and there's a reason why nobody sees this stuff coming, right? But I think that there's somebody named Jonah Bolden who I'm kind of high on. He played a couple years at UCLA. There's an injury there, and apparently there were some like character issues there. But he's like a wing forward. He's played over. Gosh, I'm blanking now on the team. I think FMP in the Adriatic League was who he played for over in Europe. And he played really, really well. And he was like kind of a creator. He doesn't have a ton of like passing feel, but he has an incredibly smooth shot. And he's long and looked very athletic in that league and looked decently athletic at UCLA. So if he can at all be a decent defender, as a stretch four, he could be extremely valuable. I think you can like attack closeouts with, a modicum of ability there. And then Harry Giles, I mentioned him when Jay was guessing at the player who like has no knees left. Giles has, no knees left, and since medical technology is a little bit better and ACL tears aren't what they were, he came back this year and at Duke was supposed to be like the number one player in this class. I kid you not, he was projected number one overall. A little bit earlier, Markel Fultz took that over pretty early, even before the season started. But Harry Giles, because he was such an athletic freak, I think there's still a lot of upside there. If you can get him at the end of the first, beginning of the second, he's probably not going to be anything. But if he can overcome these injury hurdles, add like a little bit of skill that we've all seen flashes of the past like 3 years in high school, then yeah, he could be somebody I think that outperforms kind of the expectations as nebulous as they are right now.
Okay, so let's go nebulous. Justin writes, just pick the French guy with a name full of silent letters. That could be his nickname, Silent Letter. Seriously, though, we need a point guard, we need a hustle, and we need defense. This is practically a no-brainer. We like the French dude. Anton writes, do you think Cleveland would trade Melo for future draft picks now that they got swept by the Warriors, predicting a win for tonight? I guess this is from the person who wrote the question on Friday. Also, what do you think would have been the result if the Cavs had traded Melo for Thompson at the deadline? I think they could have won 2 games with Melo instead of Thompson. So put Melo on the Cavaliers. How do you think they would do against the Warriors? They win any more games?
No. I don't think Melo makes a ton of sense there, unless you're getting like Olympic Melo. If you're getting Olympic Melo,
you probably are
decent.
Though.
I don't think the role that I don't think he steps in for Thompson. I think rather he steps in for like the minutes that, oh gosh, I'm totally blanking. Who was the guy that played for the Nets? Super high flyer, played for Arizona. Old guy, has the podcast that's good.
Jefferson.
Thank you. Yeah, Richard Jefferson. I think he probably takes his minutes. I
think he takes JR's minutes. I think you add him to the starting lineup, and I think he's going to be a better. I mean, he'll do a better job than JR will do at JR's role.
I don't know if he obviously won't be able to guard the size that JR normally guards. That's going to put him in a rough position.
Okay, fair enough.
But
yeah.
but I definitely see your point as where you could kind of shift Jefferson over. Like you could make it work with the wings that they have. Whatever, you could mix and match. I think that Thompson's role is really, really important. He played well and they won. And I don't think, I think there's like a pretty strong correlation there. That's obviously not the only factor. They obviously shot, lights out. But Thompson's role, Thompson for them to win has to play well, and Melo cannot bring what he brings. So, that switch I don't think is good. But
what if you add Melo to this roster? Let's say they work out a way with like trading a bunch of crap basically to the Knicks and a bunch of draft picks in the future. You add Melo to this roster. They keep Thompson. Do they have a shot to like take down Golden State next year? Because now you have at least even if you put Melo on the bench and taking Jefferson's role, he's much better than Jefferson.
Okay, like first of all, I'll just say I have no idea, but my guess is no. My guess is probably not, because they're not lacking shooting, right? Like they have shooting. They play lineups that are insanely good at shooting. It's about the defense. Golden State has shooting, creation at so many spots, and they have, when they turn it up, they have a great defense. Not just like a good defense, but like a historically great defense. That's where the Cavs really struggle. So adding Melo is kind of just going to mirror, like duplicate the offensive strengths that you already have and then not help your weaknesses, if that makes sense.
But when LeBron has to leave the court, the team just falls apart. So maybe
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, Melo on the court, when Melo's off the court, maybe you look a little better, and maybe you don't get that game where he played 46 minutes was a +7, and they lost in the 2 minutes basically that he didn't play is absurd. If you had Melo on the court there, maybe they don't go down quite as much basically because the offense, Jefferson can't shoot anymore. What's his name? Darren Williams can't shoot anymore. You have a better offensive player that would make a difference basically when he's off the court.
Yeah, I think that's true, but Melo's best value, right, is as a creator. So what is he? He's going to replace Kyrie on those second, because Kyrie is usually the creator on those second units. I guess your point is that he's going to add better spacing than the other guys on that second unit, which I think is fair. But when those giant splits that you mentioned earlier, when LeBron goes off the floor, they're negative, whatever in this series, it's completely awful. That's I think mostly because of the defensive end. So while he's going to add some spacing, I think that if he's a ball stopper at all, which he still kind of is, and maybe you get Olympic Melo and he's a ball mover or whatever, or at least just a spot up 3-point guy, that's fine. That'll help your offense, but it won't help you enough on defense to kind of make up for that weakness that you're talking about.
Here's my greater point. The Cleveland Cavaliers should give up every first-round pick they can by NBA rules give up in the 2020 decade to the Knicks for Melo, and that would make me happy. Because if the Knicks had all of Cleveland's number 1 picks for the 2020 decade, I think we could work with that.
Yeah, sounds like a fair deal. Yeah.
What do you think? If they go to Cleveland, how many picks do you think would be realistic to get from Cleveland for Melo? If you're thinking the first round pick that Cleveland could give up would be 2021, what do you think you could get from them for Melo?
Probably just a lottery protected, maybe top 10 protected 2021st pick, maybe.
Oh, come on. You first of all, you're going to get, if you're trading for the 2021 pick, there's no protection, or else Phil is the worst GM alive.
Wait. That's not true, right? That pick could be really good. They're definitely going to protect that pick, right?
Yeah, but you're Cleveland. Your GM named LeBron James is trying to win now. You're saying F the future. If we can win another one now, it's worth it to sacrifice the future, basically.
Yeah, but 4 years from now,
no, of course,
there's no way any responsible human is going to say LeBron is still here, and you have to hedge against him leaving. You have to hedge against some decline sometimes. I know he's an alien, but that asset for them is more important than draft picks that are closer, obviously. And you probably know that. I'm not breaking ground here, but
but just look at it this way: if you're Cleveland fans, would you trade a title next year to be bad in 2021, bad in 2023? Would you say, hey, I'm open to being bad and losing high draft picks those years if we win another title? Titles don't come along that often.
Yeah, if you're trading for a title, fine. But I guess my point is I don't think Melo's a title. Whereas you think adding Melo is a title.
I don't necessarily think it's a title. I just want Cleveland to think that. But I also think
why do you want his pick? You need to trade him to a team who owns a pick of another bad team, because once you trade Melo there, he's going to go to a good team, and that pick is not going to be as good, right? You're trading Melo for a pick that's going to be in the bottom third of the first round, it's best case, right? So you have to trade it to another team who owns a pick of another bad team, right? Which there are a few of them in the league. A lot of bad teams have them, but Boston obviously has, these Nets picks, and there's no way Melo's going to go for that. But you know what I mean? That kind of asset where the team that he goes to, their record does not control how good that pick is. I guess what I'm saying.
No, you're right. But our Moran GM gave him a no trade clause, so our options are so limited. And I feel like you have a window, you have to go for that window. Let's move a little faster just so we can actually to get to the game and not to keep you here forever. Yeah. Chris writes, does the French Freak have a highest upside in the draft, and how well does he fit with our roster? Do you think he doesn't have the highest upside of the draft? I would think Fultz is the highest upside, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But around his level, he is in the draft picks, around his level, the tier 2 guys or tier 3 guys, he is the highest upside, you'd say?
Maybe.
Okay, I'll go with maybe. Ben writes, Ben points out that Derek Fisher crashed. Jaime writes, So the Mets have been kicking the Braves' ass. Do you think now that Cespedes is back, we will start to turn things around? And I'm going to keep asking Mets questions. Thank you, Jaime. The Mets are looking good. They beat the Cubs tonight, but Cespedes is injured again.
Next
because
question.
Jaime writes, is tonight's night that the Warriors win the championship? Probably.
Hi, Jay.
Jaime also writes, when is your next Brink show going to be up? Jay and I don't know. Jay, when do you want to do another show?
I put it up Friday. I guess we'll probably record one Thursday.
Okay. Jaime writes, do you think the Knicks will trade their draft pick to get any more draft picks? So probably not going to trade down. We agree, right? Can they pair Melo? Can they pair Melo and the 8th pick to move up? Any chance? Or I guess they probably can't do that. Can they pair? Is there anything these days anything they can see them doing to move up outside of trading KP?
Besides their pick next year, because they really, really, really love somebody, I don't know, in the 3 to 6 range. No, I just don't think that makes a lot of sense for you guys, just because you don't have too many assets, right? So just take your time, be patient, plug along through the drafts, and just take what you're handed. Try to be bad. I mean, tanking sucks, but it's the best way to do it.
We're in New York. We're always patient.
Okay.
Gilliam writes, it has been reported that Ntilikina has a 7'1" wingspan. Assuming that is true, how does that change him within your tiers of prospects? Also, he's been playing very well, kind of leading his team to the French finals. Is he being underrated because he plays off the ball there and doesn't get a lot of touches? Also, the Knicks don't draft him. How much do you see him falling?
Those are all good questions. I'm taking into account all of the things that he said. Obviously, he kind of knows what he's talking about. I'm taking into account all of those things to rank him in that kind of 6 through 8 tier of mine. Most people have him much, much lower, but I agree with him as much as like those factors, I think, for me and other things are kind of bumping him up. I do think he's a bit underrated as a playmaker, but yeah.
Okay. Do you see him falling if the Knicks don't take him?
Yeah. I mean, I think he probably goes after 8. Just from what I'm hearing, which I don't really know, obviously, but I think he should go ahead of that.
Gilliam writes, if the Knicks ended up drafting Dennis Smith, would they look much different than how they look with D Rose?
Yes, they would look a lot different. He is not like old Derrick Rose. Like let's not get that wrong. But I think he's a better passer. He's a more willing passer, and also a better passer than D Rose I think ever was. So yeah, definitely different.
Okay, that I like, because I mean D Rose, even last year, no matter what you criticize him with, he could get to the basket, and he was very good at that. He just didn't like to pass the ball on the way to the basket.
Exactly.
Gilliam writes, let's say the Knicks traded Melo to the Heat, which I like, and the Heat drafted OJ Anumbumbi. Would you rather get back OJ or Winslow? So let's say the Heat draft OJ Anumbo, they say you can have OJ or Justice Winslow. Who would you rather get back?
Justice Winslow for sure. OG Anunoby is probably never going to be any good at offense. Like anything on offense. Can't dribble, can't pass. Like there are some signs that say that maybe he can shoot, but and also defensively, like I have some reason to believe that he's not going to be this great, like 1 through 5, super, super switchy Draymond Green type defender that everybody thinks he is. I think he's going to be fine. You can like put him on 1s, put him on 2s, but if you're going to ask him like make a lot of decisions, I don't think he's great at that yet. He is a pure upside pick. He looks like a Greek demigod. There's going to be a lot of development there. So no, there's no way. Yeah.
Yeah. Jay, what do you think? Jay.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
I would go with Justice Winslow because I can pronounce his name. Gillen writes, Knicks are looking for another first rounder. What do you think of Donovan Mitchell? Any other interesting player for the Knicks in the mid-first round? So is there any chance if we got the 15th pick from Portland that Mitchell falls to 15?
Yeah, the recent buzz is definitely has him a lot higher than that. 15's a little bit of a weird spot because there are some players that a lot of people have higher. So like John Collins, I think is awful. Luke Kennard, I think is awful. Justin Jackson, I think, is awful. If all of those guys get up there, then you could see some better players, like even like an OG Anunoby, who I think is a fine pick. If he slides down to 15, there's some guys that could slide a little bit there, who I think would be fine. Another name that I think is being kind of overlooked is Juwan Evans. Finding in the middle of the first round, finding a really good backup is like really good value. Juwan Evans is this little point guard out of Oklahoma State, led them to one of the best offenses in the country, can get to the rim at will, is not like the horrendous defender that Dennis Smith Jr. is, although he's a little bit on the small side, and there are problems with that. There are some lapses, but I think he has decent NBA range. He'll have to improve on that. But yeah, he's super, super good in the pick and roll. Juwan Evans, if you can get him at 15, would be awesome, I think.
Do you think undersized point guards and undersized centers are getting drafted this year higher than they should be because of Isaiah Thomas and Draymond Green?
Not because of Isaiah Thomas, but yes, because of Draymond Green. But just kind of indirectly, Draymond Green was the guy that, everybody wants to find the next Draymond Green. That's not going to happen. But now, like, everybody understands that's not going to happen. But the NBA is the way that it is, in part because Draymond Green is so good at what he does, right? So indirectly, he's kind of influenced the whole play style of the league. And so you're trying to find people who can hold up as the lone big a little bit better, but also kind of play a perimeter-oriented game, whether that be switching on defense, or stretching a little bit on offense. So bigs that are like that, I don't think will be overdrafted. People that can play on the wing and play big are crazy valuable. And I think it's worth taking a gamble on those guys. Undersized point guards, I don't think will be overdrafted. I think there's still enough of a fair understanding about the real problems that those guys bring on defense that people won't be overdrafting those guys. Like, always bet against the small guy.
Gilliam writes, what do you think of Iowa point guard Monte Morris? Seems to have truly beautiful pick and roll game, worth a mid-second round pick.
Okay, so by conventional standards, yeah, I think that's fine. My personal philosophy, understanding kind of the expectations that come along with the draft, like what you're actually going to find. I think that in the second round, you should draft really, really high upside guys. Somebody who you think maybe could be a good player. Because most of the people that are drafted in the second round are either not going to make the league or they're not going to make it past the first 2 years, definitely not past the first 4 years. Of course, there are tons of exceptions to that rule. But they're kind of just cap fodder, cheap players you can kind of stick at the end of your bench, and they're like little lottery tickets. So you should not spend that lottery ticket on someone like Monte Morris, in my personal opinion, who he's like a senior or a junior. I'm pretty sure he's a senior who's slower than I think you need a point guard to be at the NBA level. He has good feel, but he doesn't have great passing instincts. He just doesn't make mistakes, and there's a difference there. He's not a great creator. His shot is going to need some work, and on defense, he's not going to get you very much. He is what he is, right? There's not a ton of upside there to improve because maybe he's a freak athlete or he's super young or any of those things that give you a lot of upside. I just he's a stay away from me at any point in the draft, just because I'm looking for if you're going to draft somebody at the end of the second who has the expectations to be a player at the end of the second, that doesn't really make any sense, right? Because he's never going to contribute to your team. Take a swing on a freak athlete, somebody in Europe who could maybe possibly be a good player, whereas Monte Morris will probably never be a good player.
So Draft Express has us taking Josh Hart, a shooting guard from Villanova Senior, and they have us taking Nigel Williams-Goss, the Gonzaga Junior. Either of these players, guys, we should be excited about if the Knicks get?
Yeah, I think Hart is a first-round talent. I don't think he gets out of the first. I know a lot of people on mocks have him there. I think that's kind of just a lag. I think that he'll be in the first. If he does fall to you guys, you'd be super, super excited. And then Williams-Goss, I wouldn't draft him for the same reason I wouldn't draft Monte Morris. Okay.
Alan writes, hi, guys. Do you think the Knicks will get another first-round pick this year? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say they do the Portland trade and get a first-round pick. Alan writes, so you guys, I'm starting to get this feeling that Melo will not be traded this offseason. Should we just buy him out or cut and stretch his salary over 5 years? So instead of paying him 5 years, $25 million this season, we pay him $10 million over the next 5 years. What do you think?
Jay?
Sorry, I spaced out there.
No worries. I mean, you guys are the Knicks experts. I don't really have an opinion on this stuff.
I think you're screwing yourself by stretching the dollars out. You might as well like just get locked, like pay off. Like you might as well keep his cap space and don't make as many dumb moves going forward. But ideally, you trade him. It'd be weird to cut him.
Wait, who are we talking about?
Melo.
Oh no, cutting him is ridiculous.
It seems kind of absurd that you can't find a role for Melo. Cutting him seems insane. I think that's all the questions we actually have. So, Jay, what did we learn today?
We learned that our short episode ran longer than normal. We learned that Sean's name is Sean, and that he knows way more than we could ever possibly even begin to know about any of these draft guys. So thank you so much for that.
Jay, trivia question.
Yeah.
Monte Morris, is that a real college basketball player, or did I make up that name?
Real.
Okay, cool.
I had a 50-50 shot at that.
Yeah.
So follow Sean on Twitter at Ode to Oden. Listen to Ode to Oden podcast. Is there anything else any other projects you're working on? Anything else you want to plug?
Not really. That's about it. I have a website, odetooden.com. Pretty simple. I actually am not even up to date on posting all of my episodes there. You can go to like almightyballer.com/odetooden or whatever it is to find my podcast there, or just subscribe to it on any of the podcast aggregators. But I have a couple of friends who are smart, interesting guys, and I let them post some draft stuff there. So it's a good place to read some kind of like theoretical, philosophical draft junkie type stuff. It's kind of interesting if you want.
And just to sum things up real quickly, so what we've learned today is that our draft prospects consist of Malik Monk, who will never be JR and can't play defense, Frank Ntilikina, whose best attribute is he's adequate, Dennis Smith, who is the worst defender on God's green earth, and Donovan Mitchell, who is
a basketball player.
He's a basketball. Who might turn out to be a basketball player. So I think we're. Did I miss anyone?
Zach Collins. Just remember that name in case.
Okay, Zach Collins. So maybe Zach Collins can one day be Robin Lopez to our KP.
And if you want to hear us do our comedy podcast, check out The Brink of Sanity, brinkofsanityshow.com. And in iTunes. And that is it. Thank you so much, Sean.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, this was great.
All right.
Bye, love. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. It's all over. Goodbye. It's time to go. This is the end. Say goodbye.